Retail service workers of Reddit, what's the best instant karma you've seen happen to a rude customer? Worked at a telecom in Canada. I am no longer an employee, thank God. Lady comes in with a broken iPhone, is demanding to get a new one for free. If you don't know, in Canada the iPhone 6s is going for about $400 upfront on a 2-year contract at a minimum $80 plan. She had a good plan, but wanted it for free. She called up our loyalty team in store and spent the next 2 hours screaming at them. Finally, they agreed to a deal, and she is getting it for $0. She looks at me and says, I do not want a phone case, and AppleCare, additional phone insurance against accidental damage, is a scam. We work on commission, so this essentially meant I was getting nothing and ruining my numbers. She keeps telling me to hurry up through the setup, and I was trying to get them out of the store with everything transferred over and set up. She grabs the phone and starts marching off saying I was a terrible employee. She gets 3 steps out of the store and drops the phone. Shattered screen, and white screen of death. She ran back and asking what I can do. I shrugged and went sorry, but AppleCare sure would have helped. As a teenager I was working part-time at a convenience store. I was being trained by the late-night cashier. This dude comes in and grabs a bunch of cans of vegetables and such, and comes to the counter and stacks the cans in a very specific way, like a weird kind of pyramid on the counter. As the experienced cashier, my trainer, takes each can off the pyramid and rings it up, she reaches the end of the stack and we realize that the weirdo has his cock out and has it laying on the counter behind the cans. Without saying a word, the trainer grabs one of the big heavy metal cans of beans and slams it down as hard as she can on the guy's dick. He screamed an incredible scream of searing pain, grabbed his cock, and ran out of the store. She to me, calmly, you get all kinds on the late shift. Standing at the counter of the pizza place I work at, lady storms in and slams a pizza down on the counter. This isn't the fucking pizza I ordered, what the hell are you going to do about? She asked. I look at the pizza, then at my buddy Nick, and turn back to her and say, nothing. She then goes on a long rant telling how we are going to be fired, how stupid and incompetent we were. She actually told me I must be retarded, then asked why the hell we weren't going to do anything. I said, because that pizza came from the pizza shop across the street. I think she actually managed to shrink in size and slink out looking so pathetic and beaten I almost felt bad for laughing till tears dripped down my face as she slunk off. Worked at Best Buy 10 or so years ago. This happened on Black Friday. Most of the customers were in bad moods since they'd been waiting hours to come in and stand in more lines. But this one lady was a raging bitch. After yelling at everyone in my department about how she needed the laptop that was on sale despite it being sold out, she proceeds to tell us she'll have the store closed down because she works with the city and knows the fire marshal and we have too many people in the store. So she calls him, we tell her to leave, and nothing happens to the store. However, we called them as well to report what she'd said, and she got fired from her job for abuse of power. Working the window at McDonald's late night. Guy orders whatever and pulls up to the window. I'm cooking and handling the window, so I wasn't there when the customer pulled up. When I walked up to the window, I didn't see the fucker with trash in his lap. I open the window to take his card cash, and he throws a bag of trash at me. I take a step back, bothered that I just got trash thrown at me, and I watch his car speed off. I'm pissed, but there's nothing I can do. A couple seconds later I hear a small bang of metal on metal. I walk to the lobby and look out the windows. The douchebag slammed into a police cruiser who was about to loop around and use the drive-thru himself. Of course, I also went to tell the officer what just happened inside. I work at an auto parts store. This one guy stole some $60 headlights and literally sprinted out the door. We went to look outside to try and get his license plate, just in time to see him speed off, hit a curb, and blow out his tire. Called the cops and the dumbass got arrested and had to have his car towed. I was really hoping you were going to look out the window and see him calmly changing them in the parking lot. More than a few decades ago I worked at Denny's. I had 2 male customers that decided to dine and dash. Got their license plate number and reported it to the cops and jokingly mentioned that they didn't even tip. Later that night they got pulled over for DUI. Cops recognized license plate number from the report, brought them both back to the restaurant, and forced them to pay the bill. After he was done paying, The cop just stood there and looked at them and said, "Well?" The guy sheepishly handed me my tip. Guy comes in and is being a complete a-hole. Not wanting to show ID to buy beer even though he looked 20 at the oldest, constantly yelling and swearing. He also had parked in the handicap spot despite not having handicap tags or plates on his car. One of my regular customers, who is a sheriff's deputy, was also in the store. Saw how the guy was acting. Saw where he was parked. Went out, got his ticket book, and wrote the guy a ticket. Guy realized he wasn't getting his beer, went outside, to find he was getting ticketed. I could not stop laughing. I'm not sure if being a public defender counts as a retail or service worker, but considering that I provide criminal defense to indigent clients facing deprivation of their rights and freedom, I'll consider it service nonetheless. I was representing a scumbag client who was a massive meth head. She was charged with child cruelty and possession of meth, and given her criminal record, the DA's plea offer was 3 years of prison. Needless to say, my client didn't want to go to prison and started freaking out at me when I told her that's the best offer I was going to get from the DA, and it was either accept that offer or go to trial. I further pointed out the mountain of evidence against her, primarily the photographs of her daughter's injuries, the broken meth pipe meth residue in it, and the fact that her daughter was going to testify against her at trial. After she was done cursing me out, calling me a public pretender, she fired me and somehow managed to hire a private attorney for the low price of $8,000. The private attorney guaranteed her that he could win her case at trial, and that's exactly what she chose to do. Long story short, the private attorney clearly never even read this woman's file before trial. The trial lasted roughly 3 hours. The jury was literally out for only 5 minutes, and the judge sentenced her to 10 years of prison. It was a good day. It wasn't the customer, it was the manager. She was awful. She was rude, intentionally picked out favorites and gave them presents in front of everyone, even when they didn't like her and tried to avoid it. Messed up schedules on purpose for people she didn't like, etc., etc. Worst manager ever. So there was a huge storm coming in, and people were really worried about it. Like the news telling people to stay home, other businesses closing, etc. So it was up to her to either keep our store open or close it. Of course, she kept it open. Because schools closed, only half our scheduled employees showed up, the rest called in, and she called her favorites, and told them they didn't have to come in. Well, as the like 5 of us who showed up were standing there, watching out the front windows, there were 0 customers, she starts yelling at us, threatening to write us all up, etc. And we are like, no one is here, all the work is done. We are watching the wind bend trees over and worried about if we are safe we'll be able to get home. Right about this time we hear a super loud crashing noise. Ka-chunk, 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 wham! As the industrial air conditioner on top of the building got blown off. Like it rolled along the roof, then went flying into the parking lot. Right onto her car. It was so perfect it was surreal. Dead center, smashed her car flat. Like if she had been in it, she would have died. And it only happened because she parked right up by the building, where we had specifically been told not to park. All our cars were out in the farthest corner of the lot. We later found out that her car wasn't paid off, it was some stupidly expensive BMW or something, and her insurance didn't cover the damage because it was an act of God. I worked for an online banking help desk, and this 18-year-old lad phoned up saying he had seen a transaction for £7 to allpay.net, and because he didn't recognize it, he decided the bank were robbing him of £7 and that I was in on it, and I was a thieving little prick. Then he gets his dad on the phone, who stuck up for his shit of a son, saying I was a pathetic scumbag for stealing £7 off an 18-year-old boy, even though it was a debit card transaction and I simply worked in the department which helped people use online banking. But anyway, I phoned our debit card services to see if they could give any more information, and boy could they. I then had the pleasure of relaying back to this little shit's equally shitty father the following. Hi sir, thanks for holding. I've checked with our debit card services team and I now understand why your son would not have recognized the payee allpay.net. That's a deliberately vague term used for discretion when the customer has subscribed to online pornography. Would you like to pop him back on the phone so I can tell him it's a payment for his pornography? Or will you pass on the information? The father just muttered that the issue did not require any further investigation, thanked me for looking into it, and hung up. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.